Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghana Tvam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nrita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanema Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swatana Triptan Kritaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shirarikama Dabayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Shirarika Madhura Leela Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bheri Jokti Apekshaneya Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Pande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Sakjadharitena Samasta Shashri Uktastathava Gataiva Sadhavi Kintu Prabhaja Priya eva tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yasastri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yasastri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatyade Shatabdine Namaste Gauravane Vishesha Shunavadi Vatata Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhara Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Shivasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hariya Nama, Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha, Gopal Govindaram Shimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Haribo Jai Vishwapar Paramahansa Prabhajakacharya Sutara Sarasi Srimad ISKCON Pratishtha Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Ceremony Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Rata Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhay Charavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Premanama Sankirtaneka Janaka Prema Purushottam Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopna Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurudham Ki Jai Jai Lord Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Purnavadip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanushingare Bhagavan Ki Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bolo Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Samavita Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Nitai Guru Ripramanande All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga
Namo
Namaste.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasingaya
Pralada Lada Daine
Pralada Lada Daine
Hiranya हिरण्यकशिपुर्वक्षः
हिरण्यकशिपो वक्षः
शीलटङ्कानकाराय
जय शीलटङ्कानकाराय
इतो न सिंहा परतो न सिंहा
इतो निसिंह परतो निसिंह
यतो यतो यामि ततो न सिंहा
जय जतो जतो जामि ततो निसिंह
बहे न सिंहा हृदये न सिंहा
पाये निसिंह हृदये निसिंह
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
तव करकमलवरेणाकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
तव करकमलवरेणाकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव
जय नृसिंहदेव जय नृसिंहदेव नृसिंहदेव जय नृसिंहदेव
जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज
जय भक्त प्रहलाद प्रहलाद महाराज भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय श्री श्री भक्ति पथ सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर श्रृंगरे भगवान की ये भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की गौर प्रमाणिनी श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवे शतवताय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवे शतवताय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादेवे Shattavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Kids today, Christmas Day for the kids.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Nama Namaha.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Nama Namaha.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Abhilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Abhilashi.
Je tomara sharan loy tara vancha purna hoy
Tomara Sharanala Tara Vancha Purna.
Kripa kori karo tare Vrindavana vasi
Tumi Kripa Kare Kara Tare Vrindavana Vasi.
Mora e abilas Bilas kunje diyo vas
Mora Vila Vilas Kunja Diyava.
Nayane haribo sada Yugala ruparasi
Aminayane Sada Jugala Ruparasi.
Ei nivedana daro sakiranu gata karo
Nivedana Dhara Sakiranu Gata Kara.
Sevadi kara diye karo nijadasi
Sevayadi Kara Diye Kara Nijadasi.
Dina Krishna dase koye namora hoy
Dina Krishna Das Ko Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Nabasi.
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Nabasi.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani
kani sa papani Brahma tare kani sa tani tani prana santi pradaki na pare pare
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jani kani sa papani Brahma tani kani sa tani tani prana santi pradaki na pare pare
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jani kani sa papani Brahma tani kani sa tani tani prana santi pradaki na pare pare
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jani kani sa papani Brahma tani kani sa tani tani prana santi pradakshina pade
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jani kani sa papani Brahma tani kani sa tani tani prana santi pradakshina pade pade
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prare Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradedeve Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him the resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me the following names of Christ. Please give me the privilege of personal service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always sing in love with Shri So there are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, which are often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It was an offense to be inattentive while chanting. A devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jevancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha Jayananta Kuti Vaishnavrindi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Janam Bhavamahada Vagninivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vittaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivadhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Shwadanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Namnamakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamitta Smarane Nakala Etadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamiya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Vajagari Shakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Raituki Tvai Oinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tabapada Pankaja Stitha Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galara Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakairinchitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakusha Pravrusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda virahe name asli shava padaratam pinashtumam adarshnar marmahatam karotuva jata tathava vidadhatulam pato matpranatastu saivana paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunavari Pasyatari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules to chant these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord on straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotion service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end with the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant and world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so, even if sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jotapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdvaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjo Jala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Pusidanta Dantaharine Namagora Kishoraya Sakcha Viragya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambhude Parambhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपनुगवरायते गौरविर्भावमुमिस्वं निर्देश सा जनाप्रिय वैष्णवो सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावरन्नाय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः पञ्चतत्त्वमकं कृष्ण भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतार भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते जयतं सुरतोपाङ्गोर्मामन्दमतिर्गतिर् मत्सर्वस्व परम्भोजो राधा मदनमोहनं दिव्यरविन्दरन्यकल्पद्रुमाधा स्मारन्नगार सिंहासनस्थो स्मराधा शिलगोविन्ददेवो प्रेस्थली विशैवमानुस्मरमि स्मरासरसरं देवं स्वततस्थितं कर्षन् वेणुस्वानार्गोपीर्गोपीनाथ श्रीस्तुना तप्त कंचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी पुरुषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल।
Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. So we're continuing our study of the unique qualities of Lord Krishna, and today we're going to go much deeper into the project, into the knowledge of Krishna himself. Now, we had homework that many of the children presented yesterday. Is there anybody who didn't read their? Yes. Okay. You come. Do it now. Get your microphone. Did you send it to me?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yesterday or the day before?
Yesterday. But no, the day before it.
Okay. I don't know why I didn't see it. Maybe you should send it to me again.
It is in the document.
Oh, it's in document. Okay. What name is it under?
Swarit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is there. Yeah. That's your son's name?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I didn't understand. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Okay, start.
Sorry, Maharaj, the Wi-Fi is not connected.
It's not connected. if it's not connecting, I will start, and then when you get connected, you can. Did it come up?
It did.
Okay, go ahead.
Which one are you reading?
Maharaj, I did all 4 of the homeworks.
Very good.
Which one do I read first?
You did all 4. Okay, so I should have it right here. Let me take a look. Go ahead.
So this is the Pluto's allegory of the cave theory.
Okay, you made a mistake right there. It's not Pluto, it's Plato. Change the U to an A. Now I remember your homework. Change all the U's to an A. Pluto is a planet, it's not Plato.
Plato's allegory of the cave theory.
Right.
So what Plato's allegory cave theory is about is that whatever you are raised to believe from an early age is the thing that you think is right. Even when you learn that what you learned is not right, you have difficulty accepting it. So the summary of Plato's cave is 3 people were born and raised in a cave and chained in a way so that they are always facing the cave wall. Behind them is a fire which occasionally creates shadows on the cave wall of puppets, clowns, and other things. One day, one person is freed and turned. So he is
and what,
facing...
one person is what?
Freed.
Okay.
And turned so that he is facing the fire. When he realizes the truth, he goes outside and is shocked to see the real objects in color.
Outside the cave, right? Yeah.
When he's taken back into the cave and tries to tell the other 2, they laugh and think that he has lost his mind and that they can see the shadows better than he can. So this is the allegory of Plato's cave.
Good.
And the reference was YouTube.
Go ahead.
Then the next one is India 500 years ago. So India used to be one of the greatest countries in the entire world in the time when it had a proper education system and served with love and devotion unto God. But by the 21st century, many different things caused India to degrade into what is called a normal society, which means engaging in sinful activities day through night and filling the body up with nonsense things such as smoking cigarettes, eating meat, drinking liquor, and many other things. 500 years ago, people who worshipped and protected cows now eat the same animal that was so dear to them, the name of God. But how did this all happen? This madness got ignited in the 1500 BC when the Aryans invaded.
Okay, so that's, now I remember. That's incorrect. The Aryan invasion of India is something that was made up by the British to prove that culture really comes from Europe, and it's not indigenous. That's a nice word to know, indigenous to India. So that the whole idea of the Aryans, and see, it's been taught so much that Indians accept it, but it's not a fact. There's no such thing as the Aryan invasion of India, and that they brought a Western culture to India. It's false. It's completely false. Anyway, go ahead. I mean, I'm glad you're reading this now because I didn't know who Swarit was, so I didn't say anything. But that's good. You learn things by making mistakes. Okay, go ahead.
But the real blow was struck in the 1600s when the British invaded and planned to conquer India. They knew that if they contaminate the education system with all sorts of lies, then when the children got older, they will help destroy the ancient culture along with the British.
Right. That's exactly what has happened.
Because the education system was demolished, when the elders who were raised by the ancient codes passed away, there was no one to help India from the teachers of schools, which were taught by teachers who misled them starting from kindergarten. India was poisoned with many more things that slowly transformed the country into what it is today.
Very good. Okay. And then?
And
That's
then
it, right? No, there's more.
the tiger and human intestine comparing.
Okay, but that was the previous homework. Go ahead.
So the tiger's intestine versus the human's intestine. So the tiger has a smaller intestine.
Intestine. Not
Intestine.
intestine. It's intestine.
The tiger has a smaller intestine.
It's intestine.
Intestine, while the human has a larger one. And the tiger's is designed to digest meat, but the human's is designed to digest plants and other herbs.
It can also digest meat, but not as good as the animals do. So,
Yeah.
therefore, they get contaminated or they get sick eventually with what you call intestinal cancer and things like that because they're overloading themselves with meat, and they're not really meant to eat meat, but if they want to, they can, but it will cause serious problems over time.
And the tiger's intestine, it has a shorter process of digesting meat.
Yeah, the
than
human intestine is about 25, sometimes 28 feet long. Did you know that? If you open up your stomach and took out your whole intestinal tract, it would be like 28 feet long. Now, the tiger's intestine is very short, right? Because, and it has many pointed teeth. We only have these two here. The tiger's got many pointed teeth. So his body is made for eating meat. He can tear up the meat with his teeth because he's got so many, what do you call those, the pointed teeth. And then he doesn't hold the food in the intestine for a long time. But we only have two of these special teeth. The rest of our teeth are for eating vegetables and fruits and things like that. And then we have this very, very long intestine, and the meat putrefies. That's why people eat meat. They have bad smells. When they have bad breath, and then they pass bad air, and also the food is never completely digested. And then what happens is that there's something called uric acid. Is a what you would say a uric acid is produced by the fact that it can't digest completely. Why? Because in the stomach you have acids such as hydrochloric acid to digest proteins. And then you have other acids in the lower intestine. There's the upper intestine, the lower intestine. But then you're not able to completely digest meat. So a byproduct of that whole thing is called uric acid. It goes into the bloodstream. And then it begins to attack what you would call the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries, especially the arteries. And now, see, the arteries are able to expand and contract, but when it's attacked by the uric acid, it doesn't expand so much, and that's the beginning of heart problems. And and what happens is it contracts, and then there's also other things that byproducts of the undigested meat that begin to get stuck on the walls of the arteries, and now you have high blood pressure because your heart has to pump harder to get the blood through those contracting arteries and veins. And then that's the beginning of a heart attack, because now the more let's say the integrity of those arteries and veins are attacked by the uric acid, and then other things that start piling up and building up sludge, a type of sludge on the arteries and veins. Eventually, not enough oxygen goes to the heart because of all this, let's say, obstacles, and you have a heart attack. See, and then you can also have an aneurysm in the brain, and all types of things go wrong because of all the let's say damage that's done to your, not only your stomach but now to the arteries and veins. Because people stay alive by breathing in air, and then the body separates the oxygen from the nitrogen, and then it through the bloodstream it delivers that oxygen to all parts of the body. As soon as there is some type of obstruction to that, so less oxygen to the brain, you have a stroke. Less oxygen to the heart, you have a heart attack. Less oxygen to any part of the body, you get cancer. You see. Now, meat is a big contributing, let's say, factor to getting cancer. The second factor is lack of oxygen, and the third factor is acidity. Well, the meat is going to produce, because you can't digest the meat, you're going to get uric acid, and it's eventually going to go into your bloodstream and attack the integrity of your veins and arteries and capillaries, and therefore the whole process just gets worse and worse until you have the first heart attack. And then, of course, they take you to the hospital, and then they do different things to try and open up the obstruction to the veins, but they never really heal the veins. I mean, they've been. I mean, if I put acid on your skin, what would it do to it?
Dissolve it.
Yeah.
Burn it.
Well, no, it would damage it, and if it's a very strong acid, you would get a what you would call a type of injury that you can't replace. You can't heal it, right? So that's what happens to the arteries and the veins, and all this is because the meat cannot be digested properly, and that you have a very long intestinal tract, and eventually, all these things happen to you. So your homework is to look up what I just explained.
Okay, Maharaj.
Okay?
And
Why people get heart attacks, and they get blood pressure, high blood pressure, and they get cancer and all these things. It's good to know this, because then you won't eat meat. Okay.
And I have one last one, which I didn't get many with, but so it was qualities that Krishna possesses, which no one else has.
Right. That was the main homework. Yeah, go ahead.
So some qualities that make Krishna distinct from everyone else are beauty, because Krishna is always beautiful and effulgent. Knowledge, Krishna is smarter than every single Brahma combined in a single universe. Power, Krishna can do whatever he wants, whether you like it or not. And bliss, no matter what you do, you can never make Krishna sad according to your will. And I didn't have time to get any more.
Yeah, so you have to, there's a lot more. So anyway, that's good, because that leads into what I'm going to talk about today, the unique qualities of Lord Krishna. So thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
And you have a special homework also now. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the unique qualities of Krishna. We can never delineate all the unique qualities of Krishna, because they're infinite. But we can get the main ones. So number one is, Krishna is the source of everything material and spiritual. Now I'm going to give the quotes from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to substantiate these points. So it says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. So that is Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, 8th verse, which says, Krishna is speaking about himself to Arjuna, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So this is a very important verse if you want to be a preacher. This verse, 10:8, is the strongest statement. There's several verses like this. the strongest statement establishing that Krishna is absolutely the most unique person, and he's the source of everything, material and spiritual. That means that he is the essential quality of everything. So we've talked about this before. You can look it up right now on the internet. There's what you call primary and secondary qualities. Look it up right away. So this is why, dictionaries and modern education is so misleading. They talk about primary and secondary qualities, but actually, Krishna is the primary quality of everything. Why? Now, how is that? Because he's the Paramatma. He's present in every atom of the universe. He's present in the heart of every living entity. He's omnipresent. He's always present in everything. So therefore, he is the primary quality. Okay, now what does it say about primary qualities and secondary qualities? You got it? You have it? All right, take the microphone. We have to have a contest here. Who is first?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Primary qualities are
Hold the
thought,
microphone closer to your mouth.
primary qualities are thought to be properties of objects that are independent of any observer, such as solidarity, extension, motion, number, and figure.
Okay, go over those points again. Such
as solidity,
Solidity, okay.
extension,
That means you can measure its length, breadth, and width. Go ahead.
motion, number, and figure. These characters convey facts. They exist in the thing itself, can be determined with certainty, and do not rely on subjective judgments. For example, if an object is spherical, no one can reasonably argue that it is triangular. Primary qualities mentioned earlier exist outside of the observer. They inhere to an object in such a way that if the object was changed, example divided, if the object is divisible, a sphere is not. Since
It's what?
dividing,
It's not? It's what?
if the object, they inhere to an object in such a way that
In
if
here? Did you say in here?
in here, yeah,
How do you spell it?
INHERE.
Okay, go ahead.
To an object in such a way that if the object was changed, example divided, if the object is divisible, a sphere is not.
It's what?
A sphere.
The
sphere.
sphere, S-P-H-E-R-E,
SPHER
is not.
is not, since dividing a sphere would result in two non-spheres. The primary qualities would remain. When dividing a divisible object, solidity, extension, figure, and mobility would not be altered because the primary qualities are built into the object itself. Another key component of primary qualities is that they create ideas in our minds through experience. They represent the actual object. Because of this, primary qualities such as size, weight, solidity, motion, and so forth can all be measured in some form. Using an apple as an example, the shape and size can actually be measured and produce the idea in our minds of what the object is. A clear distinction is to make is that qualities do not exist in the mind. Rather, they produce ideas in our minds and exist within the objects. In the case of primary qualities, they exist inside the actual body or substance and create an idea in our mind and resembles the object.
This is complete nonsense. Did you hear anything about Krishna? No. Did you understand what they said? Would you be able to re-explain this without looking at it? No. It's a very, let's say, exhausting type of explanation. Some of it is completely wrong, and it's missing the point. What is the primary quality of everything? It's something that you cannot change. And the only thing that you cannot change is the fact that Krishna is present as Paramatma everywhere. So It can be a big thing, it can be a microscopic thing, it can be a gigantic thing or a medium-sized thing. The actual primary quality of all those things is Krishna. It's not the length, width, and breadth. It's not that it's spherical or it's square or this or that. It's not only because you can measure things. When something disappears, how are you going to measure it? Right? Like, for example, you have a building, and then they tear the building down. So what happened to its primary quality? It's been destroyed. So everything material will eventually be reabsorbed into the body of Mahavishnu. So the size, all the things that you can measure disappear. So therefore, it's not the primary quality of that thing. Now you might say, whoa, Krishna also disappeared. No, he doesn't disappear. He expands, and then he retracts, but he's always existing. So that makes him the primary quality of everything material and spiritual. So this is called darshan, philosophy. The word for darshan, the word for philosophy in Hindi, in the Sanskrit, is darshan, how you see things. So if you teach kids only to see the length, breadth, and width of something, or only measurable things that you can observe, they're getting a very, very, let's say, limited understanding of what the truth is. And it's basically a misleading. What we have to learn to see is the presence of Krishna in everything. Now, someone would say, well, we can't see Krishna, so how do you know he's there? Well, we accept Shastric evidence. We accept the evidence of the Vedas, especially Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And they say, well, it's not scientific because we can't measure it. That's your problem because you don't have the equipment to properly measure things. There's so many things you can't measure, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. So ultimately, it depends. Everything depends on who you accept as an authority. That's when you get knowledge, when you accept someone as an authority. So what's happened over time is because the scientists have been able to make, rockets and cell phones and cars and bridges and things like that. They say, well, we can do things, but that you can see, but you're talking about things that we can't see. So therefore, our approach is much more substantive or meaningful than your approach. True, because when everything disappears, how can you say that everything you said was true, right? And everything is going to disappear eventually, right? Including the body, including your house, including your family, including everything. So therefore, this is what defeats the argument of the materialists who say, well, we built bridges and we built rockets and we built cars and we built cell phones and we did this and we did that. Yeah, you also messed up the environment in the meantime and ruined many people's lives by blowing them up like they're doing right now in Ukraine and so forth. So, and then eventually everything's going to disappear. So then they end up with nothing. So we take knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't care what the others say because whatever they say is going to be destroyed over time. Whatever techniques they have will fail over time. And we see it all the time. We see people saying, well, meat is good for you. They get articles in the newspaper and in books that, it's one of the 5 most essential things you have to eat to get protein. But yet, it's the cause of a lot of serious sicknesses that lead to death. So we see, why be misled just because someone can make a rocket or a bridge or a cell phone, that doesn't mean that they know the truth. They know something, that is how to manipulate matter, but it's not the absolute truth, because whatever they're going to manipulate and make, they're going to disappear. And we saw how easy it is for things to disappear when the Twin Towers were set on fire and collapsed in New York in 2002. In a matter of minutes, these gigantic buildings disappeared. So that's the nature of the material world. Okay, so this is probably one of the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam pavartate iti matva bhajante ma buddha bhava samanvitaha. Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, a learned scholar who has studied the Vedas perfectly and has information from authorities like Lord Chaitanya, and who knows how to apply these teachings, can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything in both the material and spiritual worlds. And because he knows this perfectly, he becomes firmly fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. He can never be deviated by any amount of nonsensical commentaries or by fools. All Vedic literature agrees that Krishna is the source of Brahma, Shiva, and all other demigods. Okay, so if you just accept this one part, this is just one little paragraph of this purport, and the verse itself, you become Krishna conscious. And you have genuine knowledge. And you will never be cheated by anyone, because you won't deviate from accepting these statements by acharyas or pure devotees. And accepting the direct statement of Krishna himself about himself. So if you want to become a preacher and be able to convince people, this is the number one evidence. Krishna talking about himself and making it very clear that he is the primary quality of everything. And now, in the rest of the purport to this verse, it's all evidence from the Vedas. The first evidence is from the Atharva Veda, in which there's the Gopala Tapani Upanishad. So the original four Vedas are the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda. Previously there was only one Veda, but Vyasadeva divided them into four Vedas, the one Veda into four Vedas, to make it a little bit easier for people to understand. So the Rig Veda tells you how to perform, who to perform yagyas for. So ultimately it's Krishna, but there are also yagyas directed toward demigods. So all that's in the Rig Veda. And then the Samaveda tells you what mantras you have to say to perform the rituals for the demigods and for Krishna. And then the Yajurveda tells you how to perform those ceremonies. And then the Atharva Veda is all a large amount of supplementary information, like Ayurveda and other things that supplement those first three Vedas. And then there are parts of the Vedas called the Upanishads that begin, because there's so much emphasis on the demigods in the Yajurveda, it begins to shift the emphasis from the demigods to Krishna, but in a gradual way through the Upanishads. And the Upanishads lead us to understand the existence of the Brahman effulgence. And with hints about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there are the Puranas that are histories, ancient histories about creation and so many things that happened in the past, and it begins to talk more directly about Krishna. And then there's the Mahabharata, which is also a history from the creation to the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, that also talks about, gives a lot of information about Varnashram Dharma and worshipping demigods, and also it has the Bhagavad Gita in it, which is just Krishna talking about himself. Then you have the Vedanta, but when you read all these things, you don't get a really clear understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although the Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. But there's so much information, there's an overload of information, and most of it is about Varnashram system and worship of demigods. And then when you get to the Vedanta Sutra, it's very high quality philosophy, but again, it's easy, you can easily misinterpret it and think that it's about Brahman, effulgence. It's only when you come to the Srimad Bhagavatam that there's no doubt that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is about Krishna and his unique qualities and his pastimes, and its focus is on him. Okay, so the first evidence is the Atharva Veda, and the Gopala Tapani Upanishad is part of the Atharva Veda, and it is said, Ya Brahmananam Vedadati Purvam Yovai Vedams Cha Gopya Yati Sma Krishna. It was Krishna who in the beginning instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge and who disseminated Vedic knowledge in the past. So, to even support this statement, you can go to the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, first verse, that says, Janmarasya yata nivyadi taratas chartesu avigya smarat tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye muyanti yatsuraya. So Krishna, it says specifically, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It begins with this preamble that says that Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the first mantra says that it's Krishna who taught Brahma all the knowledge that he had to become the first Prajapati and to know how to transform energy into matter and make all the different species and things like that. So you have the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, you have the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, first chapter, first verse. And then the second evidence is the Narayana Upanishad. And then and Prabhupada gives, this is Prabhupada's purport. So he's giving all the evidences that Krishna is, Krishna's unique qualities, and he is the source of everything. And so there's several quotes from the Narayana Upanishad. This is in the purport to 10.8. And then there's more evidence from the Maha Upanishad. And then there's more evidence from the Mahabharata, and more evidence from the Varaha Purana. So all these evidences are given in this one purport, 10.8. So and the verse itself is the most powerful, let's say, validation that Krishna says himself that he is the source of everything material and spiritual. So if you want to convince people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is the number one verse. And there are others like it that we'll come to now. So then in the Bhagavad Gita second chapter, 12th verse, Latvevaham jatu nasam natvam natvam nemijanadi baha nachaivina bhavishyama sarvivayam atakparam. Never was there a time O Arjuna, when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So this is a very important verse because it establishes clearly that Krishna existed in the past, he exists in the present, and exists in the future, and we also have existed in the past, in the present, and in the future. So this establishes the eternality of the soul and the Supreme Soul, Krishna. Okay, so then there's a lot of evidence in the purport, especially from the Katha Upanishad and Svetashvatara Upanishad. And the very, very unique quality of Krishna is quoted, which is Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidati Kamam Tam Atmastam Ye Nupasyanti Diras Tesam Shanti Saswati Nitarisam. This is in the Katha Upanishad and in Svetashvatara Upanishad. And it says, the same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned state and in their liberated state or situations. So, that verse, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, says that Krishna is the person that feeds everyone, that makes him unique. It's not the farmer, it's not you, it's Krishna who's actually feeding you, because he's the one that controls the rain, he's the one that makes the seeds, he's the one that controls the changing of the seasons and the temperatures. He controls the sun and the temperatures, and it causes the seeds to sprout and grow and become vegetables and trees and fruits and whatever. So he is the one that feeds everyone. Okay, so then it goes further. In that purport, Prabhupada compares the Mayavadi's version of the truth to that of the Vaishnavas. And the Mayavadis, they reject the individuality of Krishna. They reject the existence of anything beyond the Brahmajyoti, like Vaikuntha and the spiritual world. And they reject that when Krishna appears in the material world, he appears with a spiritual body. They say he has a material body like us. And therefore, by saying all those things, they destroy the validity of hearing from Krishna, because they turn him into an ordinary person. Therefore, the Mayavadis, usually they don't talk very much about Bhagavad Gita. They hardly ever talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. They just talk about Brahman. So here we see how bad it is to hear from Mayavadis, because they are eliminating so much essential information about who Krishna is. And they're making him into a mundane, ordinary person like us. So, in other words, they're contradicting directly everything Krishna says about himself. So if you take the risk of reading Mayavad philosophy, you risk never understanding Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Why? Because they're jealous of Krishna and they're saying all kinds of nasty things that are not true about him. So, but they don't hide the fact that for them Krishna is not relevant at all for going back to Godhead. Well, where are they going to go then? They're going to end up in something impersonal, where there's no identity to it other than some kind of light. So you see how they have positioned themselves to completely reject the existence of Krishna. And over 90% of the gurus in India are Mayavadis. So now you know why there's so many problems in India. Okay, so also this is further, there's more evidence in this second point. In the 15th chapter, 7th verse, Mamaivam sa jiva bhuta jiva loka sanatana. It explains very clearly that the soul is eternal. The individual soul as well as Krishna, both eternal. And that the individual souls are part and parcel, or they're fragmented parts of Krishna. Both terms, either fragmented parts or part and parcel, mean that although we are connected to Krishna and we cannot break that connection, we can forget about it, but we can't break it. But we still are a unique individual, and so is Krishna. So this is very hard for people to understand because, and that's why Prabhupada chose the two phrases to explain that we are part and parcel of God, and other times he says we are fragmented parts. So what does that mean exactly? Well, a fragmented part means that you are a unique individual, but you're still connected to Krishna somehow or other. But part and parcel is clearer. In other words, you're a part and you're a parcel. Parcel means you have your own individuality, which is eternal, but at the same time, you're a part of Krishna. You're never separated from Krishna. So that's the 15th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 7th verse. And Prabhupada says, the Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual, but material. Even accepting the argument that the individuality of the jivas is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms his individuality in the future also, and the present. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained the spiritual individuality all along. Okay, so how do we know that? Well, later on in the Bhagavad Gita 14th chapter, Krishna, 14th chapter, last verse, it is said, 14th chapter, last verse, yeah. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vyayasya cha sasvatasya cha dharmasya sasvatasya cha dharmasya sukaisya kanti kasya cha. And I am, Krishna is saying, and I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So he's saying, this Brahma Jyoti is coming from me. So, therefore, then the Mayavadis, what do they say? They want to make Krishna an ordinary person like us, and that will destroy his validity for giving knowledge. Therefore, if he's an ordinary person like us, you can ignore reading the Bhagavad Gita because he has 4 defects, just like we have 4 defects. We're ordinary living entities, and we have 4 defects. We make mistakes. We're easily illusioned. We have imperfect and limited senses, and we have a cheating propensity. So we can't, on our own, develop the truth or knowledge. It's always going to be tainted due to these 4 defects. Now, if we say that Krishna also has the same defects that we do, then we can ignore Bhagavad Gita because there must be mistakes in it because of these defects. So you see how they bring Krishna down to the mundane level by all their nonsense statements. And so that you don't accept Shastra, you accept whatever they say. And they say things that are anti-shastric. So this is the trick of the false gurus in India, somehow or other, either they gave a wrong interpretation of the Shastra or they reject the Shastra. Like Satguru, he rejects Shastra. He said, you don't need it. That's old books. I'm here in the flesh. Just listen to what I say. He's not the only one. There's many others that do that. Or they'll give their own interpretation of the Shastra. So those are the two tricks that they have. All right, so, but in the same purport, what purport is that? The purport is the 13th chapter, 23rd verse. Prabhupada says, no mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. That is, all the books, you go in the library and look at all the books that are there, and there's hundreds and thousands and millions. He's saying, not one of these books is comparable to the Bhagavad Gita. That's a huge statement, because the Bible is there also in the library, and so is the Quran, and so is the Torah, and so is the Jain scriptures, and so is the Buddhist scriptures. They're all there. And Prabhupada's saying, no mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all its importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse, what verse is that? 13th chapter, 23rd verse, which says, yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the supersoul. So you have Krishna in your heart, and you have your own soul in your heart. So we are never separated from Krishna. So it says here, if Krishna is accepted as an ordinary conditional soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. The common man, with all the four defects of human frailty, is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses its importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse, 1326, is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of the living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Okay, now, where is that condemnation? Well, it has to be in the 13th verse, as Prabhupada says. And it is. It's in the beginning. It says, Chetra gyam chapimam vidi, sarva chetra shubharata, chetra chetra nayor jnanam, yattaj jnanam matam mama. O scion of Bharata, Arjuna, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. And in the purport, in the first paragraph, Prabhupada says, while discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul and the supersoul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity or the soul, individual soul, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the supersoul. Because the supersoul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma or supersoul. So, see how things get connected, but you have to know how to connect them. Prabhupada is helping us. So he says here that therefore individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds, not on material. So the Mayavadis, in order to confuse you, they say, well, the individuality is only in the material world, but it doesn't exist in Brahman, right? So, but the individuality that's being talked about by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter is spiritual. It's not material, right? So, but you have to have the proof of it. And the proof, you go back to the beginning of the 13th chapter, 13.3, which explains that there are two souls in the body, the Paramatma and the Jivatma. And the Jiva-atma is only has knowledge of itself. But Krishna, although it's in the body of your body and my body, he's present in every body. That includes the aquatics, the plants, the bugs and reptiles, the birds, the mammals, humans, and demigods. He's present in every body, every plant, every tree, every insect, every reptile, every fish. Not only that, he's present in every atom also, right? So there's a big difference between Krishna and us, right? We're only present in the body that we have, and we're only conscious of that one body. You don't know what's happening in my body. I don't know what's happening in your body. But Krishna knows what's happening in everybody, right? You can make a song like that. Right? Yeah. Okay. So, therefore, the individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by the great acharyas like Sri Ramanuja and others. See how Prabhupada mentions Ramanuja Acharya, who's in the Sri Sampradaya, because he says all the Vaishnava Sampradayas, all four of them, the Kumar Sampradaya, the Lakshmi Sampradaya, which is the Sri Vaishnavas, the Brahma Sampradaya, that's our Sampradaya, and the Rudra Sampradaya, or Shiva Sampradaya, which doesn't mean the Shaktas and they also, like Asat Guru, he's a Shakta. He worships Shiva, right? But he thinks Shivoham. I am Shiva also. But anyway, the point is that Krishna is in the heart of everyone, and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And not only in the material world, in the spiritual world. You could say, with some validity, that Shiva is the Supreme Personality in the material world, because all the jivas are coming from the vision of Mahavishnu, but it goes through the Shiva Linga and then into the individual soul. So if you have a myopic vision, look that word up, myopic, M-Y-O-P-T-I-C, myopic. What does it say? You got the microphone? You got it? Okay, here.
Lacking imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight.
Yeah, that's a description of a Mayavadi. Read it again. Lacking
imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight.
Yeah, in other words, it's dumbbell.
Dumbbell.
Yeah. So what do? They always limit things. So they say, well, if you're talking about individual, it's on the material level. No, it's not on the material level. Krishna is not talking on the material level when he refers to the soul. He's talking about the spiritual level. But see, they're very tricky, and they know exactly how to trick people. And unless you have the commentary of Vaishnavas, you'll be tricked, because they have a way of convincing people. They smile, they tell jokes, they look like they are not attached to anything, but yet they're very attached. They're very, very attached. And you'll find out as time goes on. What I'm thinking of doing is writing a short biography of all these false gurus. But, I'm hesitating doing it because all you're going to hear is horrible things. It's like, it's a downer, It brings your consciousness down when you hear about all these great guys who are actually, they're all scoundrels. If you really find out the truth about what they've done. There might be one or two that are a little bit cleaner than the others, but there are some really dirty people that have become so-called incarnations of God, really dirty, filthy people. Anyway, I'm still thinking about it. I probably will not do it because you'll hear so many negative things. It's not good to hear so much negativity. Okay, so we're staying on the positive side with Krishna. Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanuja and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita, that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. The non-devotees' approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking a bottle of honey from the outside, right? So, is it ever going to taste the sweetness of the honey? No way, Jose, right? I don't know if your name is Jose, but there's no way he's going to taste the honey, right? So, one cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Prabhupada's teasing us. It's in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What verse is it? Well, it's a very famous verse. Na evayam mayate dya yoga prokta sanatana puratana bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam hi tad uttamam. It's a very wonderful verse where Krishna says, that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, Arjuna, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Now, what does that mean? Transcendental mystery of the science. That means that from the transcendental level, so many things are being directed in the material world, but we can't figure it out as long as we have mundane desires in our heart. We'll never be able to figure these things out. Even though we see them, we still will deny that there's a supernatural, spiritual, and mystical origin of these things. So that is the dilemma of the modern scientists. They only accept what they can measure, and that means they're limiting themselves only to matter. But there's a lot more reality than just matter. And then all the knowledge that they're giving is only about this one little fourth of reality, not the greater 3/4 of reality, that is the spiritual world. So therefore, when you get incomplete knowledge, your life is incomplete also. Or as they say in colloquial Hindi, bir Bir Hakim Khatrejan. Yeah, Bir Hakim Khatrejan. The half doctor is no doctor. So you're not getting the real doctor here. You're getting the half doctor when you hear the Mayavadis, you hear the scientists, you have the philosophers. They're not giving the full picture. And therefore, by accepting what they say, you will never get the full picture, and you'll never actually attain real happiness and real love. That's the fact. That's why there's so many people that are suffering and frustrated and upset and angry, and relationships are going sour, and relationships between countries go sour, and not only between people, right? It's all because they have very, very partial knowledge of what is true. Okay, so we'll stop right there. And now we're going to continue on this subject, the unique qualities of Krishna and all the evidence of it. So this becomes like a big book, right? So are there any questions? We only covered 1 or 2 verses. But see, in those 1 or 2 verses, there are many other verses you have to talk about to understand what it's saying. So this is why this is unending knowledge. It's no end to it. It's the farther you want to go, the farther you will find. See? It's like an unending kaleidoscope. You can look that up, kaleidoscope. Go ahead. You have a question?
Maharaj, I had one remaining question.
This is how the sages in Naimishranya sat down for 1,000 years hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. 1,000 years, right? And it happened after the disappearance of Parikshit Maharaj. So it happened not so long ago, right? Okay.
Maharaj, yesterday I heard before the material creation, no one but me exists. Did I hear it correctly? And but
Yes.
today
Yes.
today
Today
in
the same thing.
Today we are saying in the second
So
chapter,
that's
12th
in
verse.
Narayana. That's in the Narayana. 1 second. Oh. The Narayana Samhita. Okay, go ahead. Ask your question.
In today discussion, the second chapter, 12th verse,
Yeah.
Krishna says there is never a time,
And I did
nor
not
you
exist.
or this kings or anyone.
Yes.
So that means we all exist all the time, but before the material creation, Krishna says, I am the only one existed.
Yes.
So how do I see there is a
So
difference?
this is from the Narayana Upanishad.
Ah.
Atapurusho havai narayano kamayata praja srejyati. Then the Supreme Personality of God, Narayan, desired to create living entities. The Upanishad continues. Narayanad, Brahma Jayate, and so forth. From Narayana, Brahma is born, and from Narayana, the patriarchs are also born. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 Vasas are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. From Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. This Narayana is the expansion of Krishna. So, in other words, it's saying that there was only Narayana before the creation.
Mhm.
Okay.
But in the second chapter, 12th verse, there was never a time that none of us ceased to exist.
Yeah. No, because
If you are born-
your soul is eternal.
So when we say we are born, that means we took the material.
Now look, whenever it says born, he's talking only about the material world, not the spiritual world.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
The other one, Maharaj, I was trying to quickly look at how Mayavadis interpret versus what
Mayavadi's
interpret
interpretation.
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
There is one example, 7th
One,
chapter.
there's millions of examples.
I want to understand how they interpret,
Go
compare
ahead,
side
go
by
ahead.
side.
Yes, that's good that you're doing that. Go ahead.
This is the 7th chapter, 24th verse.
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita.
But
so
with the Mayavad purport.
yeah, how they, because that's a very key to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So Prabhupada translates as unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Yaktam
was impersonal.
Yaktam. Yeah, go ahead.
and where was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme.
So
So-
how did the Mayavadi translate that?
Yeah. Not knowing my supreme nature, unsurpassable and undecaying, the ignorant persons regard me, who am the Supreme Spirit, beyond the reach of mind and senses, and the embodiment of truth, knowledge and bliss, to have assumed a finite form through birth as an ordinary human being.
Okay, so just read that last sentence.
I can read the whole because not knowing my supreme nature, unsurpassable and undecaying, the ignorant persons regard me, who am the Supreme Spirit, beyond the reach of mind and senses, and the embodiment of truth, knowledge, and bliss, to have assumed a finite form.
Okay, so they're saying that what you perceive as Krishna's incarnation is a finite form.
Yeah.
It is, in other words, it's material. Because matter is finite. It disappears at one point. So they're saying that the absolute truth is inconceivable. You can't really, it's not something finite. So when the Lord appears, this is what the Nayayadis say, when he appears in a material body. And that's not the supreme truth. The supreme truth is Brahman. So they destroy the validity of Krishna as being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. If he appears in a finite form, but wait a minute, that is a complete right. So that's a complete debunking of the verse, 4th chapter, 6th verse. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi swam prakritim swam adistaya sambhavami atma maya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So they just insulted him by saying he appears in a finite form. Yeah. You see my point? Everything they say is a severe insult. And they're saying something completely different than what Krishna says in the 4th chapter, 6th verse about himself. Now look up 4:6 in the Mayavadi's book. You're going to see they're saying some of the worst aparad, offensive things about God, about Krishna. What's it say? Now, don't get used to reading the Mayavadi books. Okay, give him the microphone. He beat you. He won the contest there.
Although I am unborn, the Lord of all living entities, and have an imperishable nature, yet I appear in this world by virtue of Yogamaya, my divine power.
And whose thing is that?
This is...
whose book is that?
Swami Mukundananda.
Okay, well, he's not far off from the right meaning there. He's not far from the right meaning. Let's see what your Mayavadi says. It all depends on how he defines Yoga Maya, though. We'd have to find out. Okay, any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In one of the verses we referred today, 13.3.
Yeah, 13.3.
O son of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. And it says
knowledge, right?
Yeah, and knowledge, and this is my opinion.
Yeah.
I was just curious, nowhere in Bhagavad Gita, at least I learned, Krishna never said my opinion. And he said, follow me, listen to me, and they were all statements or order rather than...
Well, Krishna's opinion is final. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, no, he does say it in other places. Let's see. He says it. 1 second, let me just think a second here. Yeah. So what is your point? You're saying it's Krishna himself. Whatever he says, is absolute truth. So if he says this is my opinion, that's it. That's the absolute truth. Right?
No,
It's
no, I
not
was-
that it's a speculation. Like if you say this is my opinion,
Right.
okay, that's your
The way
speculation.
we use it, yeah.
Yeah, but when Krishna says this is my opinion, there's no question of speculation. That's the final truth.
18:6, I just did online search.
Okay.
18:6.
Yeah.
It says all these should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Partha, that is my final opinion.
Right. There it is. So he does say it in other places.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Go, you find something, Prabhu? Mayavadis are getting you mixed up here. Okay. All right, we'll stop there. And I'll look up some things so you don't get confused by the Mayavadis. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So now we'll have Aarti, Guru Puja.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandho Mui Savadhana Mate
Mando Muli Savadana Mate
Bandho Mui Savadhana Mate
Mando Muli Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhaba Toriya Jai Jahara Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hai Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya Guru আর না করি হো মনে
आसार ना करी हो श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति जय प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जाह होइते अविद्या विनाश जते भक्ति वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु गुरु करुणा लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना प्रभु कोरो दया देहो मोरे पाद छया प्रभु कोरो दया देहो मोरे पाद छया प्रभु हे बेजस घुषुक त्रिभुवाना प्रभुपाद पतित पावना प्रभुपाद होइलो शरणा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमः। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajagacharya Statara Satara Shri Shri Srimad His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nanta Koti Vaishnava ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem Shri Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Samakunda Radha Kunta Giri Govardhana ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi ki jai. All glories to assembled doors. All glories to assembled. All glories to assembled doors. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Buddha. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection who fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet, your fame is spread throughout all the